Lock. Down.
We all know the procedure, the practiced steps, but what happens when the hypothetical nightmare becomes your crushing reality? What you are about to experience are three separate accounts from individuals who lived through the unimaginable. A teacher, a witness, and a student, each trapped in a different circle of schoolhouse hell. The identities have been protected, but the terror, the confusion, and the lasting scars are presented here exactly as they were described. This is the sound of safety protocols breaking down. Our first narrative comes from a woman who dedicated her life to education, only to have it violently taken from her in the very room she called her sanctuary. For over a decade and a half, my world was bounded by four walls filled with the scent of clay and turpentine. I was an art teacher. To me, that classroom was more than a room. It was a gallery of potential, a space where anxious minds could find quiet focus in the stroke of a brush. I loved my students, truly, even the difficult ones. Most teenagers are grappling with invisible storms, and I saw my role as a steady port. But one year, there was a boy. Let's preserve his privacy and call him Leo. Leo was a puzzle wrapped in a mystery. He had a formal diagnosis, yes, a place on the autism spectrum, and that came with its expected social hurdles and frustrations. I want to pause here and state this unequivocally. In my long career, I have taught countless brilliant, kind, complex students with similar diagnoses. A neurological difference is not a precursor to violence, ever. With Leo, however, the atmosphere shifted when he was near. It was a subtle thing, a chilling duality behind his eyes, as if another consciousness watched you from just behind his gaze. The most profound horrors are not those that shout, but those that wait in absolute silence. The incident that forever altered my path began on an utterly ordinary Tuesday. The dismissal bell shattered the afternoon calm, and a river of backpacks and chatter flowed out into the hallway. I began tidying up the pottery wheels, but a prickling on my neck made me turn. Leo had not moved. He sat at his desk, a statue amidst the sudden emptiness, his hands flat on the table. "Leo," I said, my voice gentle, "the day's over. You can head home." No reaction, not a twitch. Then, slowly, he turned his head toward me. His face was arranged into a smile, but it was all wrong, a grotesque plastic stretching of the lips that didn't touch his distant, cold eyes. A wave of primal unease washed over me. Deciding not to escalate, I turned my back and pretended to organize a shelf of acrylic paints, giving him the space to leave on his own terms. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. I could feel his stare drilling into my back. I finally sat at my desk, pulling a stack of sketchbooks toward me, forcing my breathing to steady. The scratch of my grading pen was the only sound. Then, darkness. The fluorescent hum ceased, plunging the room into a deep gray twilight. My head snapped up. Leo's chair was empty. I scanned the room and saw him, a stark black silhouette perfectly framed in the classroom doorway, blocking the faint safety light from the hall. He had been waiting by the light switch. "Leo," I said, fighting to keep my voice level and teacherly. "That's not funny. Please turn the lights back on." From the gloom, his voice came back flat, devoid of any human cadence. "I don't need the light. I can see you perfectly from here. You look very breakable." The word breakable seemed to hang in the polluted air between us. My blood ran cold. This was not the boy I graded papers for. This was something else entirely. Just as my hand inched toward the panic button under my desk, the door behind him was shoved open, flooding the room with fluorescent glare. Mr. Henderson, the history teacher from across the hall, stood there, looking confused. "Everything all right in here? Door was shut tight." Leo blinked, the alien emptiness in his eyes vanishing, replaced by a mundane, slightly annoyed expression. He mumbled something about forgetting his bag and shuffled past Mr. Henderson, disappearing into the bustling after-school crowd. I was left trembling, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. I concocted a flimsy excuse for a power fligger from my colleague. I told myself I was overreacting, that I would address it professionally tomorrow in a one-on-one. It was a decision that haunts every remaining second of my life. The next day dawned with a false normalcy. My planning period was a quiet oasis. A few diligent students sat in the back, earbuds in, textbooks open. The morning sun streamed through the high windows. I was lost in administrative emails, the dread from the previous afternoon compartmentalized into a box labeled "to be handled." The classroom door hissed open on its hinges. Assuming it was one of my students returning from the library, I didn't even glance up. The first sensation was not pain, but a profound, shocking pressure in my lower abdomen, as if I'd been hit by a speeding piece of furniture. Then the fire erupted. I looked down, bewildered, and saw the wooden handle of a kitchen knife protruding from my side. And beside me, Leo, his face a mask of serene concentration, as if completing a complex art project. He made a soft, satisfied sound, almost a hum. Then he twisted the handle. That's when the scream tore from my throat and the world exploded into motion. The students in the back shrieked. Leo yanked the knife free as I slumped forward, and he turned toward the others, the blade glinting red. Their survival instinct outpaced mine. They were already scrambling, tripping over chairs to get to the door. The sight of them fleeing unlocked my own frozen limbs. With a guttural cry I didn't recognize, I shoved my entire body weight against the desk, launching myself sideways. I fell to the floor, scrambled on hands and knees, and lunged for the hallway. I grasped the doorframe and hurled myself through, spinning to slam the heavy door shut just as Leo reached it. The lock engaged with a heavy thunk. Immediately, the brutal, rhythmic banging began. He was stabbing the door, each impact splintering the wood from the other side. I stumbled backward, clutching my side, a warm wetness spreading rapidly across my shirt and through my fingers. Chaos is a living entity. It has a sound, a cacophony of screams, slamming doors, and the piercing digital wail of the lockdown alarm. It has a smell, copper and cleaning supplies, and pure fear. I was half dragged, half carried into a dark janitorial closet. He stuffed rags against my wound, his face ashen. From our metal prison, we listened to the aftermath unfold. Running footsteps, angry shouts, the periodic soul-chilling thud against my classroom door finally stopped. He was out. Leo was loose in the labyrinth of the school, and we were all trapped in with him. Time dissolved. Each ragged breath was a battle. The pool of blood on the concrete floor grew wider. My thoughts spiraled around a single terrifying axis. I was going to die in a closet, drowning in my own blood, while a monster I had tried to help roamed free. It felt like days later when the shouts of police echoed down the halls. He had been found hiding in the auditorium catwalk. The aftermath was a blur of sirens, stretchers, and blinding hospital lights. The legal proceedings were another kind of trauma. His defense was a single reductive word: autism. They claimed it distorted his reality. I call that a coward's explanation. He was sentenced as a minor. The physical recovery involved surgeries, infections, and a permanent numbness in my side. The psychological recovery is ongoing. I have not set foot in a school since. The sound of a slamming door can send me into a panic attack. I see his placid, smiling face in my dreams. The career I loved is a ghost now. Our second story transports us to the volatile world of high school social hierarchies, where unchecked cruelty can become a fuse, and a single spark can ignite an inferno. This is told by a young man who stood by and watched the fuse burn, a decision that etched permanent guilt onto his soul. This wasn't the simple, mean-spirited teasing you see in movies. This was a systemic, almost ritualistic destruction. Mark was golden, captain of the varsity team, a smirk that could charm teachers, surrounded by a loyal pack. His opposite was Ethan, a solitary figure with a permanent defensive hunch, clothes that never quite fit, a walking target. Their dynamic was the school's darkest entertainment. Mark's group would corner Ethan near the lockers, a cascade of insults designed to provoke. Ethan's response was always a tense, trembling readiness to fight, a fight he was physically incapable of winning. It was a predictable, brutal ballet. Mark would throw the first punch, his friends would join in, and Ethan would end up on the floor, glasses cracked, while a ring of students filmed on their phones. I was in that ring, more than once. I told myself I was just passing by, that getting involved would make me the next target. I rationalized my cowardice with a survivor's logic, but in my gut, I knew I was complicit. I was part of the audience that made the spectacle possible. The point of no return arrived on a dusty Friday afternoon at the Quick Mart a block from campus. I was buying a soda when I heard the familiar taunts echoing from the back. They had Ethan pinned in the narrow entryway to the restrooms. His voice, thin with desperation, cut through the laughter. "Just leave me alone, please." Something shattered inside me. Maybe it was the sheer pathetic imbalance of it. 3 against 1 in a grimy convenience store. My feet moved before my brain could stop them. "Does it make you feel big?" I heard myself say, my voice trembling. 3 of you on him? That's just sad." Mark and his friends turned, their expressions shifting from amusement to predatory interest. "Well, look who grew a conscience," Mark sneered. "You want to make it a fair fight? Step on up." In that split second of diverted attention, Ethan saw his opening. He lunged forward, a wild, swinging fist connecting with Mark's jaw. It was a mistake. It was the permission slip they needed. With a roar, they were on him, a tangle of limbs. One of them yanked the bathroom door open, and they dragged the kicking, screaming Ethan inside. The door slammed shut, and I stood frozen for one more second, listening to the muffled thuds and cries from within. Then the animal part of my brain took over. I turned and ran out of the store, the bell on the door jingling mockingly behind me. I ran all the way home. Inaction is a choice, and its weight is a lifetime sentence. That weekend, the digital evidence spread like a virus. The video, shaky and dark, was everywhere. It was worse than I imagined. Monday morning arrived cloaked in a palpable electric dread. You could taste the anticipation in the air. When Ethan walked through the main doors, a dead silence fell. He moved differently. The defensive hunch was gone, replaced by a terrifying, placid straightness. He didn't look at anyone. The usual crowd formed, a wide circle around him in the commons, buzzing with nervous energy. Then Mark arrived, flanked by his crew, a familiar swagger in his step. He pushed through the ring, a cruel joke already forming on his lips. "What's up, loser? Ready for round?" Ethan didn't let him finish. He didn't square up, he didn't yell. His hand dove into his backpack. When it emerged, it was clutching a heavy, matte black pistol. The world didn't just explode into screaming, it shattered into a million fragments of pure, unadulterated terror. The gunshot was not a loud bang, it was a concussive pop that vibrated in your chest and killed all other sound for a fraction of a second.
Then the screaming became a physical force. I was caught in a tidal wave of bodies, all elbows and panic. I was shoved, fell, scraped my palms on the linoleum, got up and ran blindly. I saw the janitor's closet door ajar and dove inside, colliding with two freshmen already sobbing in the dark. We slammed the door, fumbled with the lock, and plunged ourselves into utter blackness. We huddled on the floor, surrounded by the scent of bleach and mildew, as the official lockdown announcement boomed mechanistically from the intercom. Every creak of the building, every distant shout was him coming for us. Was he hunting his tormentors? Did he see me run? Did he blame me too? The silence that eventually fell was worse than the noise. It was a thick, listening silence. When the all clear finally came, it felt like a trick. We emerged, shell-shocked, into a hallway littered with abandoned backpacks and a single white sneaker. Police tape already cordoned off the commons. Mark was gone, a dark stain on the floor where he had fallen. Ethan was captured miles away, near the woods. He told detectives he was scared, that he brought the gun for protection. I believe he believed that, but when he pulled the trigger, it wasn't protection, it was annihilation. Our final descent begins not with a sound, but with a stench, a primordial, wrong smell that seeped into the very bricks of the building, a ghastly herald for the horror that lay waiting. The boys' locker room was a temple to adolescent funk, damp towels, cheap body spray, and sweat. You acclimatized to it, but on that particular Monday, as we descended the concrete stairs, we were met with a wall of odor so potent it was almost a taste. It was sweetly putrid, cloying, with a sour, meaty undertone. It wasn't just bad, it was offensive, an insult to the senses. Guys were pinching their noses, making exaggerated gagging sounds. "Who died in here?" someone shouted, a joke that would soon curdle in our memories. We complained to Coach Miller, who was leaning against his office door, looking exhausted. "It's a locker room, gentlemen. It's supposed to smell like hard work," he droned, dismissing us with a wave. "Get dressed, open a window if it bothers you." We changed in record time, holding our breath, our t-shirts and jeans absorbing the foul miasma. We carried the smell with us to our next classes, leaving trails of faint disgust in our wake.
By Tuesday, the situation had escalated from gross to grotesque. The stench had metastasized, leaking out of the locker room vents and permeating the entire gymnasium. You could smell it in the adjacent cafeteria. A kid vomited on the basketball court during first period. Finally, the administration was forced to act. Our gym class was herded upstairs and crammed into a vacant history room. With no lesson plan, we were a hive of nervous, grossed-out energy. The theories flew: a dead rat, a spoiled milk experiment, a broken sewage pipe. The teacher, Mr. Edwards, was trying in vain to get us to read silently when his walkie-talkie crackled to life. We couldn't hear the words, but we saw the color drain from his face. His eyes went wide, darting to the door. In one fluid, terrifying motion, he dropped the book, sprinted across the room, turned the lock, and pulled the blinds shut. "Get down," he hissed, his voice a strained whisper full of raw fear. "Under the desks, now, not a sound." The contagious panic was instantaneous. Was there a gunman in the hall? Had someone seen a weapon? We dove to the floor, scrambling over each other to cram ourselves under the tiny wooden desks. For 2 hours, we lay there in the dusty semi-darkness, listening to our own ragged breathing and the occasional terrifying sound of running footsteps in the hall outside. No explanation was given. We were hostages to an unknown threat. Then, as strangely as it began, it was over. The walkie-talkie crackled again. Mr. Edwards unlocked the door, his face a mask of grim exhaustion. "Go straight home. Do not linger. Do not discuss this with other students."
The order was absurd. Discussion was all we had. The rumor mill that night was a frenzy of digital terror. The truth, delivered in a sterile morning announcement, was worse than any speculation. The smell had a source, a human source. A junior named Colin had been reported missing by his disinterested parents days late. He had last been seen the previous Friday afternoon. Investigation revealed he had been involved in a violent altercation right there in the locker room. He lost. His body was forced into his own locker and the combination lock was snapped shut. For 5 days, through a warm weekend, he remained there. We had changed our clothes, joked, and breathed deep the air of his decomposition. The lockdown had been called the moment a janitor, investigating the unbearable smell, pried open the locker and made the discovery. The horror had not been an external threat invading our school. It had been rotting quietly in our midst, a secret kept by the very walls. The monster wasn't a stranger. It was, in all likelihood, someone who sat in our classes, someone we knew. That was the true lockdown, a prison of knowledge, of realizing the evil that humans, even young ones, are capable of, and that it can fester silently right beside you. These are the chronicles that never make it to reunion speeches. They are the echoes that linger in silent hallways, the stories whispered by those who survived the unthinkable. They remind us that sometimes the safest places can become the most dangerous traps in an instant. If these journeys into the heart of real-life terror held your attention, please support the channel. Hit that like button. It truly helps us grow. And make sure you are subscribed to Thrilling Nightmares. We dedicate ourselves to bringing you the most gripping true accounts from the shadows of human experience. Your subscription fuels our search for the stories that need to be told. Stay vigilant, stay curious, and remember, the line between a normal day and a nightmare is often thinner than you think.